Itchy scalp, flakage, dandruff, dryness. I understand. So let's talk about it on Locks Talk. Seborrheic dermatitis, or SD. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Locks Talk with Pammy. So before we begin our discussion, I would ask that you be reminded to please, if you'd be so kind, to like, share, and subscribe to Pammy Locks Will Love YouTube channel. As well, my website is printed beneath me, but I will also have it in the description if you want to check out my website and become a client, even if it's virtual, for consultations so that I can help you meet your personal needs for your personal journey. So let's get started with today's discussion on seborrheic dermatitis. Okay, so we're going to define what seborrheic dermatitis actually is. But first, let me go into why I'm pronouncing it. The proper pronunciation for the words is seborrheic dermatitis. Seborrheic dermatitis. Let's try to say that 10 times fast, right? But some refer to it as seborrheic dermatitis, others say SD. But I know and understand all of them as the same. So I'm going to read the definition that I have written in my blog just to make sure I don't miss a beat. All right, give me a second. Okay, so seborrheic dermatitis is a common skin condition that mainly affects the scalp. It causes scaly patches and stubborn dandruff. So dandruff and SD kind of coincides with each other, okay? It affects oily areas of the body as well. So what exactly is seborrheic dermatitis? It is a skin condition caused by an inflammatory reaction to excess Malassezia yeast, which is a small organism that lives on the skin, and it eats the oil and stuff that we develop on our skin. When it overgrows, the body's immune system overreacts to it, which then causes a flare-up or irritation and flaking of the skin. Seborrheic dermatitis can be diagnosed by visual confirmation. No labs or allergy tests are necessary to diagnose it. Seborrheic dermatitis affects more than just your scalp, and the symptoms can be detected in other areas of the body prior to it showing up on the scalp. This can help you be proactive in keeping it under control before it actually develops on your scalp. You'll see it on places like your face, chest, underarms, anywhere where there's glands and hair growing, you can develop seborrheic dermatitis. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now we're going to look at visual signs of seborrheic dermatitis as it develops in different places of your body and not so much on your scalp right just yet. So let's look at different areas on our faces, for example. Have you ever had like that dry, flaky, almost looks like salt that's like right at your eyebrows or right at the bottom of your sideburns, or even in the creases around your nose? It gets really dry and scaly and flaky, but it's like oily and greasy at the same time. And even during the pandemic, when we had to wear masks like all the time, you started developing dry patches of skin and flakage around your mouth and things like that. Those are signs of seborrheic dermatitis. Now, seborrheic dermatitis can affect any and every one. It depends on how reactive your immune system is to the Malassezia yeast that builds up on your skin. Those little creatures, little micro creatures, the Malassezia yeast, live on all of our skin, and it feasts on the oils and stuff that our bodies create. And like I said, for some, our immune systems overreact even more, causing severe flare-ups. So that is one of the visual signs of seborrheic dermatitis. You might see it happening on your face before you feel it or see it happening in your hair. Okay. Number 2, another visual sign of possible seborrheic dermatitis buildups on your body, not just your scalp. Again, I'm back and forth with this one on my blog because I don't want to miss a beat, okay? And I want to make sure you get all of the information. So number 2, patches of greasy skin covered with flakes, white or yellow scales or crust on the scalp, face, sides of the nose, eyebrows, ears, eyelids, chest, armpits, groin area, and women, even under the breast, you'll see signs of seborrheic dermatitis. So, yeah, there's a lot of places on your body other than your scalp where seborrheic dermatitis can be detected. And if you see it there, chances are it's going to happen on your scalp. Okay, so number 3 is red patchy blotches. All the places that I just mentioned about the yellow scaly flakes, you can also have red patchy blotches, scalp, face, eyebrow area, sideburns, face, chest, and all the other areas that I said, groin area. However, if you see red patches on your face, it can also possibly be rosacea. So if you see a lot of it on your face, but not in the other places, I suggest going to see a dermatologist to make sure it's not rosacea. Okay, because you do need to get treated by a dermatologist for rosacea. But red patches throughout all over in the places that I mentioned for number 2 on this blog, on this video, is also a visual sign of seborrheic dermatitis. So, what is the primary cause of SD or seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups? The number 1 cause is stress. It is stress. With stress releases cortisol into your system. The cortisol it reacts to the glucose in your bloodstream and it increases, and that increase gets into your brain activity, which causes your body to start to overreact. It gets the overreaction thing in motion. And when that happens, that's what causes the flare up, and you have the red patches in your skin. It's just like giving too much. It's almost like how keloids happen. Like it's just over healing, and so skin is growing over skin until you have this massive scar. Seborrheic dermatitis kind of works the same motion as that. So when you're stressed out, it just causes a ripple effect of all these things to happen. So it overreacts. It's almost like a fight or flight reaction, and it's the fight that's causing the flare up. Okay, the flight thing, you're not going to have that. Oftentimes, people, when they start getting the itchiness and stuff like that, and it's flaring up, they run to want to scratch it. And while I understand that that's a natural reaction to do that, it also causes more harm than good. Number 1, it's still a stress thing, and it's not a stress relief to scratch an itch. It's not. It might feel good in the moment, but it's just increasing the stress and releasing even more cortisol. Also, with that flare up, when you're scratching, like I said, I tell you, it's like little micro things living under your fingernails. You're scratching a now inflamed scalp. So those little micro things get in here, and it can cause further infections such as folliculitis and bronchial. We'll talk about that later because, the scientific pronunciation is just not with me today. But there are other scalp conditions that can develop from you scratching your scalp. You can also damage the hair follicle. And if hair follicle is damaged, it will stop growing hair. So then you'll start seeing thinning and patches and stuff because you've been scratching the seborrheic dermatitis. But we're going to move further now into tactics and preventive measures that we can take to help be proactive. Proactive, not reactive. Proactive, not reactive. Okay? To treat seborrheic dermatitis and to help it not flare up as much. Okay? So let's get into the factors that we can do to help prevent flare-ups from happening. Okay, so now we're going to look at some ways that we can treat seborrheic dermatitis. If you have it already and you're trying to figure out how to get rid of it, well, not get rid of it, but to just pipe it down so it's not flaring up on you. So number 1 for me would be to use medicated shampoos. Now in the past, when I previously recorded this video, because this is a revision or revised video of the same topic, at that time, T-Cell by Neutrogena was my go-to shampoo to use to help treat seborrheic dermatitis. And it worked very effectively. So if that's something that you want to use, that's an option as well. But since then, because I'm constantly and continuously researching products that are more effective for me, I have come across this shampoo, Head and Shoulders Clinical Strength Shampoo. And you can see it written right here on the bottle that it is formulated specifically to treat seborrheic dermatitis. And it does, because my son suffers severely from seborrheic dermatitis and it helps him tremendously. I too suffer, but not as badly as he does. I get it a lot along my hairline. And if I'm stressed out, it flares up. So that's when I know when I start feeling stressed or anything, and that's usually comes when I'm worried about my kids or something. I start getting like little flare ups, and I can feel flakage happening around my hairline. So this shampoo has been a godsend since I came across it. It really works very well. One wash will do the job, and then when I wash my hair, I'll do my first wash with this. The second, no, actually, I'll do my first wash with my ACV shampoo to clean product out of my hair and and plow the field. And then my second wash will be with this, where I can concentrate on this, working on my scalp. And I massage it into my scalp for a good amount of time, at least 5 minutes of just really working it in and letting it sit on my scalp and do its job. You can feel the menthol and cooling in it, and it instantly takes away the itchiness. And I'll finish washing my hair and do the other routine stuff that I do with my hair. But I make sure that this is included in one of the washes to make sure I don't have another flare up. So not only does this clear flare ups, but it also prevents them from happening as well. So a healthy shampoo that'll help treat seborrheic dermatitis. Next, number 2, a really good antibacterial gel, specifically a cream or gel that contains an antimicrobial agent in it. I personally like to put a few drops of tea tree oil in my aloe gel and turn that into an antimicrobial gel to use on my scalp when I'm moisturizing my scalp. That also helps treat and prevent seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups. And you only need to put like 1 or 2 drops in you don't need to put a whole lot in there because tea tree oil is really strong. So, and don't put it directly on your skin because it will irritate your skin. You need to dilute it in something. Okay. Now, number 3, a really good hydrocortisone cream. Because that helps, especially if it's stress that caused you to have a flare-up. That will definitely bring the flare up down. After you kind of brought it down and tamed it a little bit, go ahead and wash your hair. Use your shampoo and you should be fine. Okay. But keep that cream on site. Put it in your hair kit. Keep it separate from if you have some for the rest of your body, but keep a separate one in your hair kit. Trust me. Yeah. Number 4, good old witch hazel. Yes, witch hazel, baby. It will be a lifesaver for many, 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 many people. But kids, let me give you a warning with the witch hazel. You don't want just any old cheap witch hazel. You want to get witch hazel that does not have alcohol in it. Make sure that it does not have alcohol in it, because if it has alcohol in it, what happens when you put alcohol in your hair? It gets dry. We talked about this last time when we did the do's and don'ts, right? Do not put alcohol in your hair. So there is witch hazel that has alcohol in it, and there's witch hazel that does not have alcohol in it. And when you're talking about using witch hazel on your scalp, not your hair, but on your scalp, which is going to touch your hair, you want to make sure it don't have no alcohol in it. So witch hazel is really good. It's a microbial agent that works and fights against seborrheic dermatitis. So, yes, witch hazel, number 4. And finally, my holy grail, aloe vera gel or aloe vera refresher spray for Made for Locks. Now, the reason why I said this is because aloe provides moisture. And with moisture, we're not going to overproduce oil, number one, because a lot of times dryness increases because there's no moisture. So when you have that excess moisture there, and that's why with my scalp, I like to moisturize my scalp, preferably with aloe gel versus just spraying it, because then the spray it evaporates and goes away much faster. With the aloe gel, it gets to sit on there and the moisture is there for longer periods of time. As long as there's moisture there, there's no space for dryness. Dryness cannot happen if there's moisture. Dryness cannot happen if there is moisture. So the aloe gel gives me that strength. And then with the few drops of tea tree in, oh, baby, baby. And then now with the aloe vera refresher spray, that one has the aloe in it. But it also, if you look at the ingredients that's in the aloe vera refresher spray for Made for Locks, one of the ingredients is also witch hazel. And we just talked about what witch hazel does, right? So you have preventive times two. You have the moisture from the aloe, and then you have the witch hazel acting as a microbial agent that's going to be fighting against that SD, so it doesn't, and you won't have those problems. Okay. Yes. So these are ways to treat it, but there's also ways to prevent it. We're going to go specifically into ways to prevent SD from coming as well. Not SD from happening, but from flaring up. Because in our systems, like I said, SD can happen to anybody. Anybody. It's a matter of what we do that causes the flare up to happen. So let's talk about that moving into the next one. Okay, so now we are going to talk about ways to prevent SD flare-ups. And I want to remind you that seborrheic dermatitis is not a genetic disorder. It is not an allergy, per se. It is something that can happen to any and everybody, because the microorganism that lives on our skin, if you're a human, you can get seborrheic dermatitis. So you're not, separated from the rest of us. We all can get this. But let's look into ways to prevent seborrheic dermatitis flare. So let's say you've never had a flare up before. Let's talk about ways you can prevent it from ever happening to you. And that's not no guarantee that it won't, but let's talk about ways you can be proactive to keep it from happening. So studies have shown that our diet, what we eat, contributes to seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups, especially highly processed foods. So we want to avoid that. How do we avoid that? Start cooking whole foods at home. Stop eating that old processed stuff. Stop buying that box food with all the preservatives in it. That can really contribute. Remember what I said in the do's and don'ts? Garbage in, garbage out. So our diet contributes a lot to what happens to our skin. So seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups can happen from our diet. Ways to prevent that? Check what you eat, baby. Check what you eat. Also, number two, we're talking about denatured alcohol. Now, I talked about that before. Denatured alcohol dries the heck out. When I say it dries, remember I talked about when you get your nails done and the acetone that has denatured alcohol in it, so you get that white stuff around your fingernails when you're taking off your polish. Even sheen spray, that oil sheen spray has denatured alcohol in it, and that dries your hair out. There's a lot of mousses, believe it or not, that has denatured alcohol in it that will dry your hair out. Beware of, if you're going to be using witch hazel to cleanse your scalp, make sure it's alcohol-free witch hazel. So denatured alcohol plays a huge role in drying out, and when you have that dryness, that builds up flare-ups as well with the SD. Okay, so be careful. Number three, many would think it's simple to do, but it's not easy to do, especially in the world as it is now. But you want to avoid stress as much as possible. There's so many ways to make an effort to avoid stress. Meditation, get away from the drama. Sometimes you need to take breaks from social media because that could be real stressful, right? But what we want to do is be as preventive as we can when it comes to stress. right? If it's out of your control, why are you stressed about it? You can't control the situation. So when you stress out about things that we can't control, flare up, try to reduce your stress as much as possible. So number 3, preventive thing, keep that stress as low as possible. Be proactive, not reactive. Proactive, not reactive. And number 4, I've said this a million times now, right? I'm sure you're tired of me saying it, but wash your scalp regularly. Now, this time I said wash your scalp regularly. That don't mean you have to get your head underwater and wash your hair every other day. But if you suffer from flare-ups, you start feeling itchiness and stuff like that, that's why I said ice scalp wash. And I don't like to use that spray to, the dry wash, because that has sometimes denatured alcohol in it too. And it's just, you don't want to breathe that in. But I like to use warm water and witch hazel, equal parts. So I have however much water I'm using the same amount of witch hazel and a really clean white terry cloth, washcloth. Dip it in the water, right? And I have a separate bowl to rinse, wring it out, dip it in the witch hazel water again, and I not spot wash, but wash my scalp without having to submerge my hair in water all the time. You don't need to do that. But if you feel like you need your scalp cleansed without having to wash your hair, there's what we call a dry wash. And that's how I dry wash my hair, is the witch hazel solution, equal parts water to witch hazel, and I have a separate rinse bowl over here, or if I'm in the bathroom, I just run the water and rinse the rag out and then dip it in my solution again, and I just wash my scalp. I separate my hair, wash my scalp, and that helps keep my scalp nice and clean. And when I refresh my hair, I try to use the aloe vera refresher spray versus the rose water refresher spray for the purposes of preventing flare-ups of seborrheic dermatitis, in conjunction with using my aloe vera gel as well to add the excess moisture to my scalp. So yes, that's why for me personally, I have more of a preference of using the aloe vera refresher spray for my hair versus the rose water refresher spray. Both of them are very effective, but for me, because I do suffer from seborrheic dermatitis and I've had flare-ups before, I want to be as preventive as possible. So aloe vera is my go-to for me. Okay? Yeah. Number 4, wash it. Yes. So this is another tip in preventing SDE or seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups. We talked about this in the do's and don'ts, but we especially talked about this in the pros and cons of using oil on your locks. Don't overuse oil. As I said before, our skin, which includes your scalp because it's also your skin, produces its own oil. So adding more oil or too much in addition to what we already produce causes the flare-up as well. Because remember, I said the Malaysia yeast, which is the little microorganisms that live on our skin surface, they feast on that oil. And if they are eating that and they're reproducing and getting more and more, our bodies are like, what the heck's going on here? And that's where the overreaction happens, and the flare-up is like, and then you got all this stuff going on, and you're like, what the heck is going on with my skin? What is going on? What is this? What is this? And you're scratching and you don't know what it is. That's what it is. And like I said, it happens not just on your scalp. It can happen like in the corner crease of your nose, or the corner crease of your mouth, or at the end. And there's oil glands right here next to your ear that produces and traps a lot of oil in the pores. That's right at the base of your hairline down here on your sideburns, where a lot of times people get seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups really bad. So again, it's a mixture of oil, scaly skin. It can be yellow, patchy, and flaky. And like I said, dandruff, it coincides with seborrheic dermatitis. So if you suffer from dandruff, I just get dandruff. That's a form of seborrheic dermatitis. Yeah, it is. So when you overuse oil, especially if you're using oil, as many people like to say that oil is their holy grail for moisturizing, when it is not. If you put an oil on top of that dryness and that flakage and stuff, you're just mixing it in and making a little, oil soup with dry skin and scalp and all that disgusting stuff. And now you're trapping the dryness in, and now you can't get water or moisture past the barrier of that oil creates. Because remember, you can't, oil and water don't mix. Hell, oil and vinegar don't mix. So what makes you think oil and water can mix? If it, and there's acid in vinegar, and it still can't break the barriers of that. So don't over oil your hair, because that definitely is going to contribute to seborrheic dermatitis flare-ups. Okay. So getting back to the list, now we're going to move on to number 5. As I said before, one of the tips that I gave is when you have that excess moisture on your scalp and or skin, it helps dryness not to come. With moisture, there cannot be dryness. With moisture, there cannot be dryness. So aloe vera gel works best for me. Like every other day, you know how when we say we grease our scalp? Well, I gel my scalp with aloe vera gel. Okay, and make sure when you do purchase aloe vera gel, which the one that I use is Made for Locks aloe vera gel. Hold on, give me a second. I'm back. So the Made for Locks aloe vera gel, right? And again, it's all of the things, sulfate free, parabens free, and all of that stuff. No alcohol, cruelty free, vegan friendly, dye free, no dye and nothing in it. It is 99.75% aloe. So it just, they filter out all of the pulp and stuff from the aloe leaf, but 99.75% aloe. And I put this on my scalp. It comes in an 8-ounce bottle. This 8-ounce bottle lasts. It lasts. Even though I use it every other day, it lasts. And you put it on your scalp, and it provides you with that excess moisture. So with moisture, dryness cannot exist. So moisturize your scalp with the aloe vera gel. Moving on to number 6, maintain a healthy scalp. Now, here is my little tip for you. Now, this you can make. It's not a product to buy. This is something you can make at home. You can make it in small batches. Okay. 4 ounces of distilled water, right, in a little spray bottle. 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. Organic apple cider vinegar, preferably. Shake it up, right? Right on your scalp. Okay. ACV vinegar is a microbial agent. It will fight against any little microorganisms and stuff that's going to be trying to grow stuff on your hair, right? It also is good for your hair with keeping your pH levels of your hair balanced so that your hair doesn't get all dry and brittle. So it's 2 good agents in one. And if you are worried about the scent of apple cider vinegar, you can just put a few drops of your favorite essential oil in there just to give it a nice scent. I put lavender oil in mine sometimes, or any of mine. I have rose oil that I put a few drops in there just to give it a nicer scent. Just put a few drops in there, okay? And put it on your scalp. You can do that every other day as well. That helps prevent flare-ups from happening as well. So we have come to the end of our Locks Talk about seborrheic dermatitis. We talked about what seborrheic dermatitis is. We talked about what it is, what causes it, what's the primary cause for flare-ups, right? That nobody is susceptible from getting it. It's everybody's. We can all get it. We talked about ways to treat it if you do have a flare-up, but we also talked about ways to prevent it and keep it from flaring up as well. Now, with all of these tips and prods and pros and all of this stuff, I want you to understand there's no 100% guarantee that you won't develop seborrheic dermatitis. However, to be as proactive as we can to prevent it from flaring up, and even when we do have a flare-up, it's not a massive flare-up because we've been so proactive with preventing it. That is the objective here, okay? every now and then, like I said, when I get worried about stuff and things like that, I do have a flare up. I do. And I don't panic and get upset and more stressed out about it. I have my tips and my ways of treating it and preventing it from happening. So I'm going to leave you with a final tip that you can also use to help treat seborrheic dermatitis and make sure that it doesn't happen. There is a concoction that you can also make yourself with essential oils that has tea tree oil and basil oil in it. And you can actually put those, because I told you about the ACV, you can actually put those, because that's what I do. I put it in my ACV solution with the 4 ounces of water and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. But in addition to that, I put 3 drops of tea tree oil, because per ounce of liquid, you should put 6 drops of tea tree oil. So since I'm using 4 ounces, 2 to 3 drops of tea tree oil I put in there, and I put the same amount in basil oil in there, and that helps also fight against the basil oil. That is the enemy of malarial yeast. They don't like that, so the basil oil really helps a lot with that. So put the little drops of basil oil in there. Just look up the ratio of how much basil oil you can use in 4 ounces of liquid. Okay. Yeah. Now I think, like I said, with mine, I put 2 to 3 in there, and I use it, like I said, 2 or 3 times a week, and that helps prevent it as well. So that's my final tip. Just be proactive, not reactive. And if you have to react, you have that information too. Okay. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Locks Talk with Pammy, me. And I will see you next time. All right. Bye.